Jesus tells the curious story of a dishonest man who cheats his employer and then is commended by him for having acted so shrewdly. Jesus wonders why his own followers are less creative and diligent in their stewardship, given that they are managers of a far more valuable household. The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 16th chapter. Then Jesus said to the disciples, "There was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, 'What is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer.' Then the manager said to himself, 'What will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I've decided what to do, so that when I am dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes.' So summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil. He said to him, 'Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50. Then he asked another, 'And how much do you owe?' He replied, 100 containers of wheat. He said to him, 'Take your bill, and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into the eternal homes. Whoever is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much. And whoever is dishonest in a very little is dishonest also in much. If then you have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? No slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Please be seated. Sisters and brothers in faith, grace to you and peace from God our Father and from our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Well, it's been a quiet week in Red Rock City, my hometown, out there on the edge of the Iron Range. It's been warm and humid, like Mother Nature is trying to tempt Red Rockers into pretending it's still summer. But Red Rockers are not so easily fooled. They can see the signs. The leaves are changing color in spite of the warm weather. Monarch butterflies and flickers are passing through on their way to their winter homes. So they're getting ready. Mrs. Nagel put up dozens of quarts of pickles and tomatoes. The Ericksons invited their family up north for one last weekend to get the boat out of the water and the dock up on shore. Mr. and Mrs. Underdahl were just kind of restless, tuning up the motorhome, cleaning the house, getting packed for their coming migration to Florida. And you can even see the seasons changing over at Red Rock Lutheran, not a place that one usually associates with change. Sunday school started, and confirmation and all the fall programs. And the church, it's been kind of full since Rally Day. All the people nobody's seen since Memorial Day were back looking tanned and refreshed and harried and happy somehow. They'd never admit it, but I think deep down they're thankful for the structure of the fall schedule. It gives their life order after their summer schedulelessness that lets them say yes to far too many things. It's strangely good to be back to work, back to school, back to the routine. Well, Pastor Isaacson's week has been far from routine. His wife's sister and brother-in-law, the ones from New Orleans, are staying with him this week. Otis just retired last spring, and they've been traveling around the country, staying with their Yankee relatives all summer, and this week it's the Isaacsons' turn to host them. And even though he's from New Orleans, Otis is probably the most famous man in Red Rock City. He's one of those guys who starred in the English oil commercials that were on a few years back during the oil spill. Do you remember them? Hi, my name is Otis. I work for English Oil. It's my job to see that every business owner is compensated for the damage to their business caused by the oil spill. Me and my family call the Gulf Coast our home too, and we're going to be there until we make it right. Otis was one of the first English oil adjusters on the scene, but he wasn't much interested in adjusting. He was much more interested in the French Quarter. And after a few weeks, word got back to his boss that nobody was getting checks. The boss called him in, told Otis he was done. He had 10 minutes to clean out his desk. Otis had a really bad headache that day, but that got his attention. What am I going to do? He wondered as he walked out of the English Oil office with his box of stuff. There ain't no jobs around here anymore. I can't move up north to my sister-in-law's place. I already burned that bridge. I know what I'll do. And he hurried to his car, threw the box in the back, and drove to the coast. Otis realized his laptop and the box of checks were still in his trunk. He had maybe a few hours before his passwords were deleted. And so he drove to each business on the coast, the fishermen, the seafood packing companies, and the empty restaurants. Nobody was busy, of course, and he said, I'm cutting you a check today. And he wrote them checks for the previous month, since the oil spill, the current month, and for the coming month besides. Well, next morning the phone woke him up. Otis, I want to see you, and bring your laptop, his ex-boss growled. And he arrived just in time to see his boss getting hugged by a tearful restaurant owner. He said goodbye to the woman and motioned for Otis to come into his office pronto. Otis entered, closed the door, and stood, shoulders slumped, in front of his boss's desk. Clever. Very clever, his boss said. I didn't think you had it in you, Otis. Did you know that business owners from all along the coast have been calling and stopping in all morning? They all want to say thank you for saving their business and their family, and I can't get anything done. I talked to the boys upstairs. They said, yeah, we can stop payment on the checks you wrote, but that would be suicide. The press would eat us alive. We better go with it. He cleared his throat and said, it hurts me to say this, but they want you to appear on TV with these people. Talk about how much the company wants to make this right. Bottom line, if you agree to come back, we won't press charges, and we want you down in Plaquemine Parish for a photo shoot this afternoon. And the rest is history. And that's how Pastor Isaacson's sleazy brother-in-law became English Oil's face of compassion. And it made him just want to puke. And he had lived the life of Riley for the past 10 years since the spill, and now he's retired and he's up here staying in the parsonage, cooking ungodly things like crawdads and jambalaya. Pastor Isaacson watched him pour a whole bottle of Tabasco into a pot of gumbo last week. A whole bottle. They'd had that bottle in the refrigerator since the 1990s. And it burns his nose every time he takes a breath in the house. It's kept him in the office this week, though, which is kind of a good thing. He's been able to get a lot done. He even had the final interview with all the students who are going to be confirmed this fall. That usually doesn't get done until mid-October. Big class this year, too, 8 students. It started out as 4, but the kids invited their friends. Well, they didn't exactly invite them. Randy made them an offer they could not refuse. Randy's the ringleader of that bunch of guys, and his folks made him come to confirmation, and if he had to come, then his friends had to come too. The power of peer pressure. Confirmation is great, Randy told them in his best Tom Sawyer voice. In the summer, we all get to go to camp and on a canoe trip. In the winter, we spend a weekend in the cities at a hotel. We sneak out of our room, and after Pastor goes to sleep and we raid the girls' rooms, you should hear them scream. Randy's been a thorn in Pastor Isaacson's side since he was coming up for children's sermons. Always asking the embarrassing question or pointing out the hair sticking out of his ears. Confirmation has been a battle of wills, a battle Pastor Isaacson lost most of the time. But Randy has not done well on his memory work tests. And Pastor Isaacson almost looked forward to telling him that he will not be confirmed this year. Finally, revenge. Well, Randy showed no emotion when informed. He just went home. Next morning, the phone rang. "Oh, Pastor Isaacson, I'm so glad I caught you." It was Deanna, Cameron's mother. "Listen, I just want to thank you for allowing Cameron into confirmation. He had such a good time on the canoe trip. It's all he talks about. He even said he's going to miss not going to confirmation this year." What a blessing that little Randy invited him. It changed Cameron's life. And pretty soon, he was dragging us to church too. "Yeah, we're so glad Cameron joined the group and that your family joined the church," Pastor Isaacson said. "You've been a blessing to Red Rock Lutheran too." Not 5 minutes later, Mrs. Johnson came into the church office with a package. "Hi, Pastor Isaacson. Just a little thank you gift from Weber for being such a great confirmation teacher. Gotta go. See you Sunday." Weber's another one of Randy's boys. He started confirmation in 7th grade. His family came later. Then Ione called. "Pastor Isaacson, I'm glad I caught you at church. I just wanted to let you know that Scotty's going to play his trumpet for the service. I don't know what got into him. He usually never wants to play in front of people, but this morning he just came and volunteered." "Thanks, Ione," said. "I'll get it into the bulletin." "What's the name of the piece?" "All Are Welcome," she said. Weber said it's the song he learned the first day he came to confirmation with Randy. "See you Sunday." Pastor Isaacson hung up the phone. "Clever, Randy. Very clever," he said to nobody in particular. This one juvenile delinquent kid was responsible for 4 new families at Red Rock Lutheran. I mean, there have been whole decades when 4 families didn't join Red Rock. And Pastor Isaacson could see how this was going to go down. If Randy's confirmed, he's a hero. If Randy doesn't get confirmed, all 4 families might quit coming. How'd this kid get me over a barrel like this? The children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the children of light, he thought. But where would we be without these new families? Their energy, their new ways of doing things have been a breath of fresh air in the church. There's new life, new vitality around here, almost like God is at work again. He looked at Randy's unsigned confirmation certificate sitting on the top of the pile. Whoever is faithful in very little is faithful also in much. He picked it up. "Well done, good and faithful servant," thought Pastor Isaacson, as he signed Randy's certificate. And that's the news from Red Rock City, where the Roman Catholics are strong, the Methodists are good-looking, and the Baptists are